Okay, welcome. Let us begin. I'm happy to see a lot of people come and join me tonight for this session. For those who are returning, welcome back. For those who are new, I'm going to run through some rules, and I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable when they're part of these meditation workshops. Part of this is to continue to practice meditating, give you an opportunity to ask questions about the practice of meditation, but also to bring in philosophy. In this case tonight, we're going to talk about wisdom, because that's a word that's used a lot, and it may be even confusing. So we're going to talk about that and perhaps come up with a more all-inclusive understanding of wisdom so that it's a little bit more clear in our mind about what it is, so that we can generate some kind of excitement and need for it. All right? For the students or participants who are here tonight, you are welcome to use the washrooms at the back anytime that you like. For everyone here, asking questions is a good idea. All right? So if you have a question, don't feel, I'll feel foolish asking this question. There's no such thing as a bad question, because every question helps me to understand where your thinking is at, and also allows me to better word things and reword things as I need, so that what I say becomes more clear. All right? The other rule is that when we're meditating, we're doing at most 20 minutes at a time. Now, you don't have to meditate the whole 20 minutes. Right? There's no particular rule that you have to do or follow, but you should try your best to do the meditation fully. You should try your best to stay here for a whole night, so you get my final, what I call the Chandao perspective, my final summary statement about what this really is about. Okay? If you need to take a nap during meditation, it's better to do so. All right, otherwise you'd be like, it's trying to stay up. All right, it's very struggling. So it's better to just take a quick nap, and then you'll be able to carry on later on. For the rest of the evening, it'll be very, very easy for you. We will have plenty of breaks, so you don't have to worry about going through a very extended, long period of time. Really, just short meditation sessions, some philosophy discussion, a quick break. We'll repeat it 3 or 4 times. And then suddenly 2 hours will have gone by very quickly. Okay? Any questions in terms of facilities and the workshop structure for anybody here? I'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the evening as well. Okay, a little bit about myself, because I see some new people. My name is Chang Dao. Most people just call me Master Dao. I am what you call a traditional Shaolin disciple. And really that means that in the 1500 years of Shaolin history and its culture, it means that I am entrusted to keep the teachings going. And a lot of disciples may be dealing with martial arts, some of them dealing more on the philosophy side or the meditation side. I tend to try to be all-encompassing and dealing with many, many different areas. But my true passion really is to take these ancient teachings, which is, we can call them wisdom. Let's try calling wisdom right away. And translating it in a way that can be practical, can be used immediately, and can be looked at clearly, so that you can see where you are at now and where you can be, if you wish. All right? Because a lot of misinterpretation, translation, but just how teachings were incorporated or written down or passed on in ancient times is a little bit different. Our world is very, very different today than 1,500 years ago, even 500 years ago. It is so different. So we have to respect the modern day that we are in, the culture and the rules of society that we now live in We have to respect that if we want to be able to move forward, all right? So what I'm trying to do is try and take all this into consideration, put together a teaching, something that's useful, and hopefully it will help you, all right? By the way, sometimes I'll reference ideas like stress and anxiety, but not really go into too much detail because I have full articles of that already online. So all you have to go is on the website stqitoronto.com, and then you click on resources and then Zen resources. There are tons of blogs that I have written there, and I will continue to do so. Eventually, I promise I will get around to actually having video blogs for everything that I do. Okay? All right. So what I want to do now is go right into a quick meditation and then talk. So action and then talking and philosophy. When we're doing this, the meditation, there's no particular right or wrong way of doing meditation. Some people are very attached to a specific way that they have to meditate. Well, if that brings you peace and comfort and you feel like you really need it, then by all means do it. Otherwise, try your best to try the approach that I suggest, because I am something called part of something called Linji lineage, and we have this particular method that is more or less tried and true, and I think it really does work, but it may require some patience and some practice to do the meditation, because in the beginning it might not make too much sense. It's only with experience and repeated trying that you take those little steps and then you start to understand why it is that we do this meditation in the way that we do. All right? This is called a 7-step sitting meditation, and it is modifiable. Feel free to modify as you need. The most important thing is that you are comfortable and feeling comfortable when you are meditating. All right, so let's go through the 7 steps pretty quickly here. All right, so the first part is how you sit. So you notice I'm already in what's called a half lotus position. If you can do half lotus, I feel that it's really optimal because it automatically partially straightens out your spine, right? So it makes it a little bit more comfortable. If you're sitting cross-legged, you'll find that if you're sitting flat, what happens is that there's always strain. Your body's constantly going this way. So you have to fight that, and eventually your back will get tired. So if your back gets tired tonight, it means that you're struggling to keep the balance of your vertical center. So how you compensate for that is by using a pillow, all right? So in this case, it doesn't have to be a pillow, you just need to be raised. It could be even your shoes, for example. But these pillows that we have here at the school are filled with buckwheat, so you can just shape them however you want. I tend to like to push more towards the front, and I sit on the front, okay, rather than in the center or the back. All right, the reason is because when you sit on the front, you can see it's raised. By the time I sit down, it's maybe raised 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and that gives me a perfect tilt so that it's easy to keep my spine straight. Right? So adjust and experiment. If you find yourself a strain, just check your posture. Are you leaning? Okay, if you are leaning backwards, you need to sit higher. So in other words, if you are cross-legged, right, then you need to sit higher. If you're sitting half lotus, you can go lower. If you're doing full lotus, sometimes I'll do full lotus, all right, and you don't even have to sit on anything at all. Okay, you don't have to raise because full lotus automatically makes you straight. But generally, I find it a lot less comfortable, especially if I'm doing long periods of seated meditation. Having said that, you are welcome to lie on your side. It's better not lie on your back unless you really have to. You can lean against the wall. You can also sit on a chair or a bench, whatever is comfortable for you. Two ladies there, you're welcome to grab a meditation pillow to sit on. I just realized because you're sitting on the bench for 20 minutes, it's pretty hard. So there's another pillow there you can just grab. Okay, as you like. Okay, very good. Okay, so the second step then is positioning your hands. This part is actually more important than it seems. I like to put my hands on my leg, on my shin. The problem with that is that the weight of your hands causes pressure, and depending on how you're choosing to sit, it may cause numbness or numbness more quickly, all right? So in that case, you can put it in your lap here like this. All right, so it's really sitting on my thigh or inner groin area, and then it puts the pressure off. Again, experiment and see what works for you, all right? The way you position your feet, I'm being very, very careful to sit in a way it doesn't put a lot of pressure along my ankle, my foot. Right? It does take some practice, but just keeping your knees bent may already cause lack of circulation and may cause numbness. So this part with practice, I can promise you, if you practice regularly, it gets easier. Eventually you can do it for a long time without feeling any numbness, all right? All right, so now shoulders slightly back, chest slightly forward. This straightens out our spine. Don't do it to so much that you feel strain, because of course you'll get tired after 20 minutes, all right? Now, your chin is level. Don't tilt your head forward or back. You need to find a comfortable level chin, all right, so that there's not much strain on your neck at all. All right, your tongue. Put your tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front. Okay, this forms a Renmai Dumai energy line that circulates naturally in the body. So keeping the tongue on the roof gently, not tight, like you don't want to get tired, is the preferred way of doing so. Okay, so finally, half close your eyes. You can fully close your eyes, but I suggest half close. Your eyes should feel relaxed. And now you'll be looking maybe 1 or 2 meters ahead of you onto the ground. What we're going to do now is start off with a quick 5-minute meditation just to get ourselves warmed up, and then we'll attempt a slightly longer meditation session. All right? So 3, 2, 1, and begin. While in your position, in your seated position right now, feel free to adjust as you like. Scan your body for tension from the top of your head. Work your way down slowly. So that means take the time to check around your forehead, your eyes. Is there tension there? If so, try to relax. Okay, relax around your cheeks and your face area, your jaws, even your ears. Then relax your neck and your shoulders, relaxing your arms down to your hands, relaxing your back and the front side, especially around your chest area, down to your hips and waist, your legs and your feet. Breathe deeply, but naturally and relaxed. Let us continue. Okay, gently open your eyes. When you are having just done meditation, maybe you had many thoughts into your mind. Maybe you had some imagery, or even heard things, but maybe you have some thoughts that you continue to follow one after another. So let me begin by saying this is perfectly normal. If you didn't have that, you are actually abnormal, okay? You're abnormal. The goal of meditation with repeated practice is to get to a point where you have less of these thoughts sooner. So if you don't practice for a while, then you have to start all over again. It's to repeated and continued practice. It's not how long that you do meditation for. So why we try to go for 20 I think is actually the optimal, maximum and optimal amount of time for meditation. If you feel that going longer is necessary, then that's perfectly fine. If it's shorter, it's fine, right? There's actually, in some ways, better not to even time yourself, to just meditate as you like, right? What I want you to do now is we're going to do a 10-minute meditation session. And this time, I'm just going to give you some additional exercise to do. The reason why I offer this exercise is that instead of allowing our minds to roam freely with all sorts of imagery and whatnot, if you have just a low-level mental activity, like for example, counting your breath, right? It could be anything. But I'm going to suggest counting your breath because it's a pretty easy, not only is it a fairly relatively easy exercise to do, but also it forces you to pay a little bit more attention of what's going on inside your body. All right? In this case, it's breathing, taking note of your breath, the quality of your breath. What I want you to do is just breathe in and out naturally. Okay, it should be around a 4, maybe 5-second breath count, something like that. And each time you breathe in and out, you count by 1. And when you get to 10, you simply start again at 0. Try not to count how many times you got to 10. It's actually not that relevant. What is relevant is trying to get past 2. Okay, even 1. All right, you'll find that after 2 seconds, you already have a bunch of thoughts. And in that case, you can just start again at 0. If you like, you can just continue. And maybe if you had 2 or 3 thoughts, then you start off again at 0. The reason why I ask you to do that is because I want you to be able to see that you can actually make progress, so you don't feel frustrated. Because otherwise, it makes you not want to meditate, and then you lose out on a very important skill that is very, very important, but not necessarily taught in this way. All right, so let's try that right now. We're going to do another 10 minutes. If your legs start to feel numb or crampy, feel free to extend them quietly. You can ruffle your legs. After this next 10-minute session, we'll do some light calisthenics. Okay, and then have a short 3 to 5 minute break. Okay, so go ahead and get back into your comfortable sitting position. Right hand top left thumb together. Straighten out your back, shoulders back, chest slightly forward. Level out your chin, tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front. All right, half closing your eyes. 3, 2, 1, and begin. Now gently scan your body for tension and try to let it go. Again, starting with the top of your head, working your way down slowly. Take your time through the face, the eyes, forehead, cheeks, jaws, and then the neck. And then your back, your whole torso. Make sure you maintain your balance, of course. Relaxing your legs and your feet. In your arms, try to relax them so much that they kind of just disappear. And you almost don't even feel them at all. Okay, let us continue. Okay, and gently open your eyes. Okay, that's approximately 10 minutes. You can extend your legs. This is quite short calisthenics. So just ruffle your legs like this, and then pat them down if you like. Okay, this improves the circulation. Okay, rub your hands together until they are warm. What you're going to do is you're going to press it on your face firmly, brush backwards to the back of your neck, head and neck. Let's repeat it a few times. Okay, and then you roll your head in a circular motion. Change direction. And now rolling your shoulders forward. Switch. Okay, and then lean forward and try to stretch out your lower back. Okay, and then come back up. We will add or change some of the calisthenics that we will do tonight. I'll introduce to you a little bit of what we call Shaolin stretch therapy for today, and kind of get you excited about that to make you feel a little bit better and improve your posture and allow you to sit full lotus as well. We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, take your time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Those online, if you have a question, you can just type it into the chat, and I'll do my best to address it. Okay, see you back in 5 minutes.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
There are like cycles in meditation, right? To go low and then shallow, and then you go deeper, and then you go back up. Now it's something like in sleep, right? And you have
Are you talking about during your
you're
meditation?
getting cycles
Are-
like of 3-5 minutes maybe. You're getting deeper, and then you're getting shallower again. You're almost like.
Are you referring to your mental activity? Are you referring to mental activity maybe?
No, it's like slight trance, I would say. It goes deeper and then disappears.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that is as you get into more and more meditation, you get to more and more of that feeling of maybe even your environment starts to disappear. So you kind of get like in this
something
in
like
this
that.
in this trance.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
My question was like in sleep. They say that don't wake during RMS, right? Just don't.
Don't wake.
During rapid eye movement.
Oh,
state,
don't wake
right?
somebody up. Okay.
So is there something like that? Would you say just take it farther, or just end whenever you are in a shallow level, or would you say it doesn't matter? Do whatever you feel like.
In meditation, yes. Okay. So if we stop the meditation as we did right now, but you feel like you want to continue, by all means, keep going. Right? Just go with how you feel. If I don't want to interrupt, I'm on something really good right now. Okay, by all means, keep going.
Yeah, sometimes you're taking a time, right? And sometimes I do have something to do after. And then like a
Yes.
couple of minutes before the time, you're like, okay, I'm kind of done. You recycle, right?
Yes.
The question is, should I go and then pull it for an extra 10 minutes or 2 minutes, right? And not 10. Right?
Ideally, when you're meditating, you do it without any timer. Without something, okay, I have to do something in 10 minutes. That's not the ideal way of doing
It's better
meditation.
than nothing, I suppose.
But if you are doing like in a session here where we're doing a 10-minute session,
Right.
to answer your question more directly,
Right.
you can pull out of it when I say, okay, time to end, no problem. Because you'll get very good at continuing in the next session. All right? It gets easier because you already got into
This is what I've done now.
into that state.
The first and the second.
Okay, let us continue. All right. It's time to get excited about wisdom. But before we can do that, we need to understand better what wisdom is. Daniel, I noticed your question. I will answer your question right before we do the next meditation session, all right? Okay. Who wants to give it a shot? What is wisdom? What does it mean to be wise? What it means when someone says, oh, that person is very, very wise in what they said. What is wisdom?
I think ability to predict would be the indication of wisdom.
Your ability to predict.
To predict.
Okay. Anything else? There's no wrong answer here, all right? Because our dictionary is very flexible on this definition of wisdom. Yes, Jimmy?
I went to the temple recently, and there was a discussion session from this, and one thing that came up was resilience. So part of wisdom is resilience, which is not always talked about.
Okay, resilience in terms of life. Your ability to take a hit and then come back. Okay, good, very good. Yes, Paul?
I'd say humility, like a kind of Socratic humility. All I know is I know nothing.
Okay. Okay, so like certain sayings or teachings may be considered wise because maybe it prevents people from having like the North American ego. Okay, I'm all this, right? And when you start doing that, you suddenly think you're always right, and then it becomes your biggest flaw, resulting in your biggest downfall. Yes, anything else? Anyone online want to venture a guess what wisdom is? I shouldn't say guess, but what is your definition of wisdom? It's a little bit better. Yes?
Compassionate understanding of others and yourself.
Okay. Being very compassionate. Okay, these are all great answers. So let's just quickly take a look at the definition of wisdom. Generally, when people use the word wisdom, they're talking about having a particularly good judgment about an action or an idea. So then we'll reflect on what someone did or even what you've done and how it impacted other people, and then it's determined either wise or unwise, right? So the greater your sphere of influence, the more careful you have to be with your words in public. because people will say, oh, that wasn't very wise, right? Or that was very wise. So there's actually a slight problem here, right? You'll notice that, and I'm not saying any definition is wrong or a problem, all right? But the main problem is that there's something missing in all the definitions that everyone has provided. There's something very, very missing. But let's start with an example, a little bit more concrete example, let's say. And let's take that of speeding. Right? You're speeding 25% over the speed limit. So you're in a 40 zone, but really you're going 50 kilometers an hour, something like that. Right? So someone who's looking at you driving like that will say, that is very unwise. Right? And they might say that because maybe you're putting other people's lives at risk, right, for example. But then as you're thinking that, suddenly an ambulance goes by at 60 kilometers an hour. It's going 200% over the speed limit. Okay? And then you might say, oh, that is kind of unwise, but maybe it's not so unwise because it's an emergency. But then who is to say that that person's life in the ambulance is more important than the risk that you're taking speeding, right, in a 30 kilometer an hour zone? So usually a 30 kilometer or 40 kilometer an hour zone around this range is a school area. So if you're doing this during the day, you might be running over kids, right? There's a good reason behind why we employ the laws as we do, particularly in this case, talking about dealing with traffic. So we go through an example of something being wise to unwise to wise and unwise. But you'll see in this example, the problem here is that the wisdom that we use in terms of definition tends to be more externally oriented. Okay? Externally oriented. So wisdom is kind of like teachings, right? It's, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. All right? Because the outcome is generally perceived as better if you follow these words of wisdom. Right? My main gripe behind this is that it's lacking something very, very important. And that is, instead of the external, what about the internal self? All right? When we rely on an external environment to define something like wisdom, actually, what's happening is that you're following the advice of others, which means it's guidance. It's not wisdom, it's guidance. So some guidance over time becomes invalid. Some guidance maybe is eternal. So I just want to read, I put together some examples of words of wisdom that some people have said. Now this is kind of really, really interesting. So there's obviously many of these. Right, I just want to read off a couple of these here, right, just to give you an idea here. It says, these are all fairly famous people, or well-known, historians, historical figures, etc., even current. Confucius says, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Okay? Albert Einstein says, only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. Albert Hubbard, the greatest mistake you can make in life is continually fearing that you'll make one. All right? Mahatma Gandhi, there is more to life than increasing its speed. So take time to just think about what they're actually trying to say, what makes it wise. Okay? Even Oprah Winfrey, the biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams. Dalai Lama, I'm not sure which Dalai Lama, by the way. So our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. So obviously, indeed, these are wise. We consider them very wise sayings because there's something in there. There's something that these people know that we generally don't. So what if you go against these sayings and you do something, all right, that doesn't follow what they're saying? Are you now unwise? If you decided it was necessary to speed, all right, is it necessarily unwise because you broke the law? All right? I'm trying to paint a very, not exactly a black and white picture, kind of a gray line. All right? So we're using words and we have perception about what wisdom is, but how come it's not really helping? How come we have to keep going back to these words of wisdom, but we're seeing the same mistakes being repeated, either with ourselves or people we know, or in governments around the world? You see it every single day. How come we cannot learn? All right? So we will talk about this missing piece about the internal self and the wisdom of that in the next meditations, after the next meditation session, right? So I'm going to leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger, but we're going to have a really fun conversation after this. And hopefully by the end of the night, you get a very, very clear understanding of what actually wisdom is. It needs to be clear, and you need to be excited about it, all right? And there needs to be a very clear way to actually gain wisdom, all right? Because right now, it's not clear. Looking at the wise things doesn't make you wise. You can memorize all you want, but it will not make you wise. How can you actually become wise? All right, so these are some of the questions that I will directly address tonight, all right? So let's go ahead and we're going to do another meditation session, but this time it will be a 20-minute meditation. Now, Dan had asked a question. He says, is it important to align your chakra during meditation? So I would recommend that you leave off any ideas of chakras or qigong, right? Or any other idea of meditation that you may have had prior to today. Think of this not as a replacement of any other meditation practice that you have done, right? But perhaps as an alternative one. So then you can compare and decide what's the best for you. If you need to worry about chakras, for example, I'm definitely not the right person to ask. All right? I don't work with chakras. I do qigong and energy nodes. All right? But even still, I would say don't worry about qigong. Don't worry about your energy. All right? Just follow the instructions. All right? Don't let your mind wander and keep on introducing new ideas or bring in other ideas. This is specifically Shaolin meditation, Linji style, right? That we've been doing over 1,500 years. It's a very good reason why we do it. Simplicity is always the best in our opinion. So try to keep things simple, all right? And then the answers will start to come, all right? So let's go ahead and hopefully that gives you a pretty good answer that makes some sense, all right? Start with your sitting position. This is going to be a lot tougher now, 20 minutes. If you go numb, feel free to extend your legs, massage, get your feeling back in your legs, and then return, okay? Feel free to decide. You need to figure out how to place your feet if you're doing half lotus or even full lotus. Do you put your feet close together? You put them a little bit further apart. You can even put them out like this. You can put pillows to support your knees. There are so many ways that you can do it, all right? All right, straighten out your back, chest forward, shoulders roll them backwards. Put your right hand top left, thumb together. Put your hands on your lap or on your lower leg. Level out your chin. Put your tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front. Breathing in and out through your nose. Half close your eyes, and let's begin. I remind you to try the counting method and just see how far you go. Nice and relaxed. Try to get to 8 or 9. If not, right, even getting to 2 or 3 is already a good start as long as you are improving. Right, otherwise, save your questions until after this session. Okay, let us continue. Okay, gently open your eyes. Right, you can extend your legs. Let's do a quick calisthenics here. Okay, once again, ruffling our legs. And then patting down our legs. And just rub along your legs all around, up and down, inside, outside, even the underside if you like. Okay, putting your hands together and rubbing until they are warm. And change things up a little bit here. Putting your hands on your eyes and then looking left to right 3 times. And then up and down 3 times. And then circle your eyes in one direction 3 times. Try to go a little bit beyond your range of motion. Change direction. Okay, so rub our hands again. Pressing once again firmly on our face. Brushing backwards to the back of the head and the neck. Let's do it 3 times. All right, let's go ahead and circle our head 3 times in one direction. And then switch. All right, this time we're going to turn our shoulders and come all the way around to other side, turning our shoulders, and then returning back to center, and then repeat. So you turn your shoulders, feel that stretch along the hip and the waist, come all the way around, turn your shoulders again the other way, stretch in hip and waist, and then repeat. And then change direction. Let's go back the other way. Right? If you're getting a little bit of a pain where it's a good pain, then no problem. If you're getting like a sharp negative pain, then obviously ease up on the motion so you don't feel that, or just avoid it altogether. All right, putting our hands together in what's called a Guanyin sign. We're going to extend our arms outward 3 times. So just go out nice and light, and then if you want, go a little bit sharper and sharper. All right, now onto one side. What we're going to do is we're going to extend our arm out like this. At the same time, we're going to kick our leg out like this. So I always say just test to make sure you don't end up kicking somebody in the face or any other part of the body. All right, so ready? 1. And then go a little bit faster now. 2 and 3. All right, switch other side. Yeah, just test a little bit here. Once again. Okay, let's go ahead. And 1, 2, and 3. Very good. All right, come back up. We're about to go into another quick break. But before we do that, just take note of how your meditation experience has come so far. I just want to stress, because I get this question every session, is, how important is it to adhere to the sitting format? You should know that actually there's documented 81, according to my master anyway, 81 different ways to postures for meditation. 81. And that includes just standing. Right? You can stand in lotus position, you can sit down lotus position, you can do what we're doing here, you can put your hands here. Some people like to put the hands here. There's like so many different ways. I even venture to say that there's a nice statue of the Buddha in India where, right, the Buddha's apparently meditating like this. Now that's people's interpretation. Whether the Buddha's actually asleep, we'll never know. All right? But the reason why I don't recommend this is because it's associated with sleep. Lying on your back or on your side, it's too comfortable. All right? It's way too comfortable. So I recommend that. That's why we don't do that. I have a little bit of strain. Like when you're sitting like this, there's always a little bit of tension. That way you can train yourself not to get sleepy when you're meditating. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. I'll see you back in 5 minutes.
Seems like, at least like around the GTA, everything is Linji. That's like Chinese.
That's not too surprising. That's really interesting because Linji is it's treated as very, very more serious in terms of the practice of Zen. But I have to tell you something because a lot of people, they want, like when people are submitting the forms, okay, I will do this meditation workshop, and I say, okay, choose some topics that you're maybe interested in hearing in the future. A lot of people choose, okay, Dad, what's your Linji? I want to know more about Linji. Linji, it's one of the, there's a book on Linji, and the originator talks about, and actually they found carbon dated, scriptures from this man himself, who's Linji, who started off this branch, which I can say it's Buddhism, but not Buddhism in terms of the religious Buddhism that we know today, but it comes down from Shakyamuni Buddha. And his method is very, very unique. And it seems very violent to me, all right? So they try to get something like a koan, like they're trying to get you to wake up in a sense, in trying to understand something, kind of like enlightenment, you can say, a light enlightenment. And so the master might suddenly come, and then you might ask a question, or maybe the master asks a question and you answer in a certain way. Suddenly takes a stick and just smacks you in the head and makes you fall onto the ground like bruised and everything. That's his answer. All right, this is very, very famous in the Linji. Okay, so I've decided that's not a very good approach in today's day and age. It probably won't work, or actually won't end up very well for me. All right, I'll probably end up in jail. So, so why I started to say things that used to work, maybe not such a good idea today. All right. So I don't know if you went to specifically a Chan workshop where it's run by Linji. How many curious if they took out a stick, and, or anything like that? Probably not, right? And a lot of the teachers are very fierce, right? So you'll notice, to those who don't know me, I'm very easygoing, right? Because the way I perceive life is very different than a lot of people. So I tend not to want to present myself in that kind of fierce way, because I don't believe that that's a way that most people would really cling on to and say, oh yeah, I want to learn from this man because he's so angry and like that, right? But there's a time and place for that. There are people like that, and people really identify with that. So you go with what you want, all right? Yes, Carolyn, yeah, that exactly it. That kind of shock, whether it's hitting a stick, or some other means. They're trying that some abruptness, trying to get you to wake up. It's not that different than someone receiving a lot of trauma. And I've got some students who have received a lot of trauma, especially when they were younger, and then they found their way here, where they find it much more peaceful. But I always say to people who received a lot of trauma, take those as teachings instead, and because a lot of people in that way, if they can do that, they will progress in terms of wisdom that we're going to talk about tonight a lot faster than most people. You can shortcut it, because there's people who've been trying to seek wisdom for 40, 50 years and never really achieve anything. All right? So tonight I'm going to do my best to fill in this hole now that I've created, that I try to intrigue you with, and so that we can talk about wisdom more fully. So I mentioned that wisdom is missing something, and that is something that is more internal. Right? I call this self-wisdom. Right? What is this exactly? Previously we mentioned that wisdom tends to be more externally oriented and tends to be things that you read or see on YouTube, and they may be very, very useful indeed, but it's kind of an external. It's like memorize what I have to say, apply it in your life. That does not make you any wiser. Right? So in other words, you cannot gain wisdom by reading, is what I present to you. All right? You can only gain wisdom through practice. Right? It is a definite requirement. You can't just suddenly get it. Right? So people who receive trauma that I was talking about earlier, that was your practice. All right? You went through quite a bit of trauma, quite a bit of practice. So you shortcut it. You can gain wisdom very fast, because it forces you to introspect, to ask questions like, what is life really about? So that's why when we talk about self-wisdom, what is really missing here is 4 things. All right? 1 is the understanding of what we call the ego self. Think about that as your drive that makes you do and say things. Okay? The wants and the needs and the desires. 2 are perceptions. Right? Understanding or how you perceive things, your reality around you, is number 2. Number 3 is emotions, your ability to manage your emotions, to be aware of them, and how to understand them. That, I think, is very important. Number 4 is a little bit less known, and that is the subconscious. Right? So we can say that for now, the subconscious is what allows you, that is your ego self, the consciousness, to be able to do and say things and to think. Okay? So in other words, you raise your hand like this, it's not you doing it, you're commanding your subconscious to do it, and it does it for you. Once you understand that, there's suddenly a separation between you. There's 2 parts of you. This is your subconscious. It's really, it's called a life partner. And then there's your conscious, your ability to rationalize and then carry out actions and say certain things. So these 4 things is what I call self-wisdom. And I propose to you that if you study these and you apply them, then you can gain even more wisdom. Sometimes I like to bring in certain ideas like yin and yang. Those are somewhat familiar with that. Right? Basically, 2 opposites put together represent a whole. So if you want to look at wisdom as a whole, most of the wisdom is externally oriented. It's very helpful, but it only represents 1/2, okay, of the pie or the circle. So in other words, if you've only been practicing and learning wisdom, so-called wisdom from other people by reading and watching, all right, that means that most you can gain 50% wisdom. That's what it means. There's a whole new world to explore here. And once you understand this, you can go back to many kind of teachings from different philosophers. If you want to go back to Buddhism scriptures, the Heart Sutras, etc., it'll make so much sense for you. Right? So how do you learn more about these things? You come to these workshops. We talk about them. We talk about things like anxiety and stress, and we talk about them in terms of especially your perceptions and emotions and the subconscious. The more that you practice, the more that you start to understand, because you become aware of it. You become aware of these things. Like Igor's come to almost every single workshop. So I know he understands. All right, you see, you look at Igor, he's a very happy-go-lucky guy all the time. All right, not always. We're human after all, but in this environment, he can just be himself, and he lets a lot of things go. And you just need to keep on practicing these 4 ideas. Now, I will at some point put a lot more information about self-wisdom online. There is still some fairly light reading available to you on the website. Again, it's under stquadron.com, under resources and Zen. These things are always free. This is my mission. So far as my 20 years of life accumulation of study and practice, to start developing and coming out and talking about these things in this way. So I want to shortcut people's paths because maybe you'll surpass me, all right? Which can only be good for us humans, right? So we want to solve problems in the world. In other words, rather than trying to solve them directly, in which way that you think is right, start with the self. Everyone needs to start with the self. We're taught to what is right and wrong, but what if it came from within? All right? If we practice it on ourselves, we already know really what's right and wrong. We don't have to say it, we know. All right? We'll make the right decisions, right, in life and work together in that way. So, in short out of it, in this session, I just want you to appreciate that there's a side of wisdom that's not really talked about directly or concisely or precisely in this way. So, but this is the direction that I've been going at. All things I've been doing for over the years is about self-wisdom. Okay? And I continue to drive toward that. And I hope that you'll be part of this journey, whether it's for yourself, right? At first it should be for yourself, obviously, right? But then be with me and then continue to get the message out, all right? Because first of all, you need to see that it does work. You need to see that you become more understanding of yourself and the motivations behind what you do and say. and even your interpretation of what suffering is, you need to see that for yourself. And then to experience the changes. Okay? When you are helped, things become clear, that's the best time to try to help other people. All right? Okay, so that's a lot I've just said. I'm going to now go through yet another 20 minutes. Do I have time for this? I don't actually. It always ends up like this. All right, so we're going to do a slightly shorter meditation. After this, I'm going to do maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Like maybe we'll do 15 minutes. I want to introduce a little bit of stretch therapy, just to change things up. The light calisthenics that we just did after the last meditation session is what I normally do. It's part of the considered meditation stretching that we usually do in the Linji, at least the Linji family. So, but the last part, I'm going to treat you to a little bit of stretch therapy for 10 minutes, all right? And while I answer your questions. All right, so go ahead and find your comfortable sitting position. It'll be, again, a slightly shorter session, but try to take what you've been learning and experiencing from the previous meditation, try to apply it, see if you can continue to push the envelope in terms of the amount of time that you can count with very few thoughts. All right? Again, don't be frustrated. Just try to breathe and relax and just kind of keep on counting, all right, to see how far you can go. Okay, 3, 2, 1. And let's begin. Straighten out your back. All right, right hand top, left thumb together. Your chin is fairly level. Imagine a string that's just gently pulling on your head upwards to make your body a little bit straighter. Tongue on the roof of your mouth towards the front, breathing in and out through your nose. Breathe deeply, relax, scan your body for tension, and relax. Let us continue. Okay, gently open your eyes. Nice. Extend your legs. Okay, so you can follow me. We're going to do some additional stretching, what you call stretch therapy. We're just doing a little taste of it because Shaolin stretch therapy is a Qigong exercise. It deals with the joints, and it's about understanding the many different joints that we have, but also how to strengthen them, right? And improve the mobility as well, right? Increasing bone density, etc., etc. So we're gonna do some of these exercises. Just try the best to follow. We're gonna work our way downwards. So first thing, when you put your hands, fingers like this, raise your arms, and then squeeze your head gently with your elbows. Then you're gonna turn your shoulders from one side to another. What I want you to do is muscle isolate. So you're only thinking about your upper torso, okay, or your upper lats, or just around your shoulders, okay, turning and going through the full range of motion. So in a way, you're using muscle to stretch, and this is really the key. You need to use muscle to stretch because that improves your overall strength. It puts pressure on the bones to increase density, but also builds your muscles differently. Right? Stretching only increases flexibility, but doesn't give you necessarily the strength to move in the full range of motion. All right, so putting your hands behind your back, elbows back, chest forward, and then repeat. Again, going a little bit more than your full range of motion. I'm just gonna move pretty quickly here. Okay, turning now the elbows from one side to another. Just think about how to bring that elbow over a little bit further each time. Keep your body vertically straight. All right, the straighter it is, the more efficient your turn, and the better rotation you're going to get in your individual vertebrae. All right, so now put your hands on your head and then just tilt the shoulder. So make sure you're not leaning like this. It's just upper body tilting from one side to another. All right, so put your hands on your knees, slide your shoulders in one direction, and keep them level. Like don't tilt your shoulders to the left or right or forward or back. just keep them level. So it's like a shearing from side to side. Okay, and just go, again, try to go a bit beyond your range of motion. You can use your hands to push a little bit now, from one side to another. You should feel a stretch right here on the hip and the waist area. Right, and then forward and then back. Again, don't tilt, don't bend your hips. All right, just think about your shoulders sliding forward and back. All right, it'll take some getting used to because we're doing muscle isolation, which may be a very unusual exercise for most people. All right, so slide to one side, and now circling in a full range of motion. Try to always push your range of motion a little bit. Use your hands, get a little extra stretch. Be careful to keep those shoulders fairly even, so not tilting the shoulders. Okay, and then change direction. Okay, and then on your side. So in this position, you want to put your knee behind your other knee or shin. What you're doing here now is you're rotating your hips downward, but not lifting your body off the ground. Okay, so putting your hands, I'll put this pillow over here. You clasp your hands like this, elbows over here, and just turn your hips downward. Okay, and you'll feel a nice stretch in the hip and waist area. And then you can pulsate it. So in other words, you force it to 110%, and then you relax to about 90% of your range of motion, and then you keep going. Okay, so your movement will be very, very subtle. Again, it works out your lower core muscles. At the same time, stretching what I call the upper hip joint. Right, and then you're going to pull forward with your hands while rotating your hips down. Pull forward, and you get a decompression in your hip and waist area. Right? So you pull forward, you can feel a nice stretch. Just hold that for a little bit, and then rock back and forth. So you go forward and back. And if you sit around a lot like I do, whether it's meditation or work, right, you're going to get a lot of strain in the hips because a lot of pressure coming down into your hips and your upper hip joint, and it's sustained for many, many hours. Okay, so that means there's stagnation and there's pressure in those areas, and of course it's going to hurt, right? It's not normal just to sit there and have that throughout the day, all right? It's the normal now, but it wasn't normal before. All right, switch on the other side. Okay. Put your knee again behind the other knee. Right, again, clasp your hands and then rotate your hips downward. Feel that stretch and just hold. Okay, it should feel like a nice, comfortable stretch or pain even, but should not be a sharp and uncomfortable pain. I'll just ease up on that motion. Okay, and then pulsate. Going to 110% of your range of motion, using quite a bit of muscle, and then relax. Muscle and relax. Muscle, relax. Right? Okay, and then reach forward. Pull yourself forward, stretching your hip, and just holding. Try to relax your muscles in your core for this. Just the muscles to pull you forward. And then rub back and forth. Now, if you sit around for 8 hours a day, there's no way you don't feel that good pain, all right? So you just need to do this more, is what your body is saying. It's telling you, this is very good. I'm going to make you hurt and cry, but also smile and enjoy all at the same time. That's what it's saying. Okay, come on up. Okay, there's like unlimited stretches. There's tons of stretch. So it's kind of like a bit of a plug for my class, but I have Shaolin stretch therapy on Saturdays at 12 o'clock for 1 hour. We do a whole hour of this every Saturday. So if you're interested, you can join us even on Zoom. You can buy tokens online, etc., etc., right? So I won't go into any more detail of that. All right, I've got a few more minutes, but I really haven't finished this topic because there's a lot to actually talk about. And in the article that is going to be posted in 5 minutes automatically. There's even more detail in there. But as I was mentioning, self-wisdom has really 4 components: the ego self, perceptions, emotions, and the subconscious. And in the coming workshops, I'm going to tackle each one at a time for the next 4, all right? The reason is a lot of topics that people have chosen, they wanted me to talk about, were things like how to get out of hopelessness and despair, how to get out of trauma and then PTSD, how to help someone who's going through, or yourself, going through a lot of anxiety, right, and stress. The answer actually is all in here. You need to practice self-wisdom, right? So in other words, I always repeat this, no matter how much you read or watch, whether it's my videos or somebody else's, you cannot learn wisdom like that. It's only offered to give you guidance to gain wisdom yourself. That is the key. You need to earn it, all right? Wisdom has to be earned. So let's talk about people who are indeed wise, all right? And of course, I'll never say that I'm wise, all right? But I do want to point out a couple of things here, all right? And that is the relationship between wisdom and suffering. So you'll notice that people who are generally considered wise, all right, don't really suffer so much. All right? Why is that? They tend to be more positive, right, and less judgmental. Right? In other words, they're more accepting of other people. They will feel a lot less stress and anxiety, and you can feel the energy that is to be true. Right? But of course, they're always, no matter how wise people are, they're always humans. All right? We are in this body, and we are subject to the emotional states, what I call emotional states that we experience. And sometimes we make mistakes, right? Those wise people will make mistakes. But what sets all those people apart, whether they call it self-wisdom or not, is just that. They've worked on the perceptions. They've worked on their emotions. Right? They have a very good understanding of their subconscious. Now, some may be better in one area than another. So there's always room for improvement by continuing to practice, and we call self-cultivation. So I want to leave off with some quotes about wisdom, some more quotes, because it's always fun to listen to and try to understand what did this person say and why. All right. So the Buddha has been known to say, by 3 things the wise person may be known. What 3? He sees a shortcoming as it is. When he sees it, he tries to correct it. And when another acknowledges a shortcoming, the wise one forgives as he should. Camille Alice has said, the wise lack for nothing. The foolish, meanwhile, cannot make good use of anything. And the next one, actually, is really interesting. I saw this. I just threw this in here because I was really surprised that this person said this. But this is someone named Sandra Bullock, which is a famous actress. Most people know, right? But you'll notice that she's a very, very different actress. Like, she was booted. Like, people didn't want her to win Oscars and things like that. But here, this is what she has to say. She goes, don't aspire to be in these shoes, in her own shoes. Walk in your own. Everybody is unique. And that's what makes people exciting to watch. Savor what you are and not what everyone else wants you to be. All right? In a way, wise sayings is like somebody wants you to be them. All right? In a way, not exactly. So, in other words, don't take those sayings in that context. All right? You need to apply it and see what makes sense, right? In order to gain what I call that external portion of wisdom. And then the Buddha says, a man is not called wise because he talks and talks again. Actually, I talk a lot, right? So let's see what the rest of it says. But if he is peaceful, loving, and fearless, then he is in truth called wise. All right? So in other words, why I think wisdom is very important and really not put in the spotlight these days is that if you learn self-wisdom, it will reduce the suffering that you experience because the way you perceive it will change. The way you handle it emotionally will change. The way you and your partner, which is your subconscious, deal with things and advanced life will change. All right? So another way of thinking about it is that if you practice self-wisdom, then you will be promoting for yourself peace and happiness. And the final remarks now that I have, and I'll give you an option, like it's already 9 o'clock, but if you have questions, I'm happy to stick around for the next 10, 15 minutes. But it's optional for you guys. So if you want to learn more wisdom, part of it is you need to practice yourself. But there are external references that can give you more guidance. Feel free to use those. Try to determine what makes sense. Some authors will jive more with you and make more sense for you. But then after a period, you may find that the guidance no longer really applies and you want more, then you may find another author. But I think that if you practice yourself and you develop what I call the self-wisdom, all right, then the last statement that I have to make, which I call the Shaolin Chandao perspective, all right, will make more sense. And I say, self-wisdom teaches you who you are at the core. And with continued practice, you will no longer have a need for wise sayings. All right, so that is the end of this workshop. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. The next workshop will be in January, and it will tackle perceptions. Probably we'll only have enough time to, in 2 hours, you can really only scratch the surface of perceptions, but I'll be sure to give you enough that you can work on and then to digest, all right? And then we'll continue on to emotions and then the subconscious. And then finally we'll tackle this whole idea of the ego self.
I have a quick
Yes, Chris?
question. So lately I've been experimenting with just pushing how much meditation I can get in a given day. I've noticed I hit different thresholds at different levels of daily meditation. If I go much past an hour per day, I find that I'm starting to dig into a lot of old traumas and that sort of thing, and coming to terms with that sort of stuff. I guess my question is, do you have any advice about maybe what is a good way to push the limits, or if it is good to push the limits in that way?
Right, okay. Then everyone here on Zoom heard that properly? Chris's question, you hear? Okay, good. So to answer your question, I would say that the right level of meditation, like the amount and degree of it, is really personal. And really will depend on person to person. If your motivation for meditation is try to come up with the past traumas or experiences to learn how to deal with it, then you've already reached your limit. It's enough because it brought them up. So when you meditate, in other words, things shouldn't come up while you're meditating. That's not the whole point of meditation. Ideally, when you're meditating, nothing comes up. You're working towards that in the best way that you can without causing any kind of emotional disruption. If you can achieve it, let's say even for 10 minutes of just pure peace and stillness, then afterwards, if those things come up, that means you choose one and you tackle that one thing, whatever it may be, because it's bothering you. It's in the background of your mind and it's unresolved. So you need to learn how to tackle and deal with it. In other words, you need to learn how to perceive it, although that's the topic of next workshop. You need to learn how to perceive it in a way that you can then accept it. And once you truly accept it, it will no longer bother you. It just becomes a lesson in life. Right? And then you move on. So and I don't know exactly your motivation for trying to extend your meditation practice. If it's to try to find more peace, more feeling of peace, then I think already it's going the opposite direction. It's drawing back more stuff and it's creating emotional trauma or negative feelings. So it's actually doing the opposite. So you actually need to do less meditation, in other words, right? And then find the right balance. If you need more guidance after, you can email me or contact me, because that's a much deeper level of discussion.
Yeah, I find that while definitely that it's disturbing to have old traumas come up. If I meditate through them and come to terms with them, then I do find I have an increased level of inner peace afterwards. But there's always some new trauma waiting in the wings.
There's a lot, because you know what? Truthfully, life is traumatic. We've created a traumatic experience for ourselves. Right? Life is tough. And once life is easy, you're just, you're not thinking not thinking in the right way. All right? To get to peace, you have to go through some serious trauma. But no one teaches how to deal with this trauma. And so that's why I'm really promoting now the idea of self-wisdom, because I believe that the Chan teachings presented in this way, it's clear, and it will be easy to follow. Although I really, to be honest, I only scratched the surface of these. It will be easy to follow. And then you could apply it to yourself, and then eventually accept all the traumas that you have and really perceive it in a way that becomes a life lesson that you actually appreciate, rather than feeling negative. You go, oh wow, that's so great. I'm glad I got that lesson. All right? Because life gets easier for you afterwards. All right. Any other questions? Someone asked, does chanting help with meditation? Yeah, actually, a lot of meditation practice involve chanting, but it's not required. The reason why it may help is because it helps to tone down the level of thought. All right? So sometimes, like right now, I have very light music. I'm trying to keep it more like ambient music. But you're welcome to use whatever music that works for you. Eventually, you want to bring that down so you don't require chanting in a group. You become self-sufficient, independence. All right? I'm always trying to teach people to strive towards that path, because what if, these so-called wise people are no longer available? What if my guidance is no longer available for whatever reason, right? You need to be self-sufficient, right? Because if you can't get to a level of self-sufficiency, then, put it plainly, I suck as a teacher, right? All right? That's not the job of a teacher. The job of a teacher is to get people to become self-sufficient, all right? And then that way you can continue to grow on your own, and I just simply provide guidance. How else can I help more and more people? Otherwise, I'm only working on one or two people. I can't, it's very beneficial for those people, but I can't really get very far as a result, right? I have an ambition of helping more and more people. So that's why doing these talks online, make it more accessible, is very important for me. And I hope that you will continue to attend. And especially the next 3 sessions are very, very important. To really, really get a good grasp of what self-wisdom is, and then you'll be able to continue on your own very easily. Okay. If there are no other questions, have a wonderful evening. Until next time.